Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we're going to get into another video. Um, Mainly, we're going to talk about some of the creatures in magic. But before we do, let's just kind of talk about what's going on here. Finally got a new door for my place, so we've actually got a door that works. It's a tight fit, so sometimes you have to kind of work with it a bit to open it. Like if you want to get out, you got to put your body weight into the door so it pushes it further together and then turn the handle. Or if you're trying to come in, sometimes you got to pull the door handle and then turn and go. But at least we have a new door and a working one. The last one I had was so warped it didn't close together. All you could do was get it at a crack because it wouldn't uh, the actual door wouldn't close, and then of course there was cracks in the frame and stuff. So, but at least we've got a new door. Anyway, so today we are going on to part 2 of my little magic tutorial for Magic the Gathering. Last time we spoke about lands. I don't know what's wrong with the lighting of this thing, why it keeps changing colors. So I do apologize for that. There's no other thing it shows an indication that it should do that, but it is. Anyway, I apologize. But as I said, last time we talked about lands. This time we're going to talk about creatures and using them in battle and abilities, their costs, etc. So today's tutorial is focused on creatures. I picked out an older set, not terribly old, but it's looks like about late 90s, early 2000s. So it's got some age on it. I can't remember the name of the set, but the set symbol is distinguished by looking at it's the right hand side, yeah. The right hand side of the card, because my image is flipped, so I have a little trouble with it, but the right hand side of the card, it shows what the actual set's symbol image is. So all cards from that set will have that symbol. And like I said, this is an older set, so now here in my hand I have a blue creature, the Kenai Aven. And as you remember, there are 5 colors: white, blue, black, red, green. And they all go in a spin wheel. So you got white, blue, black, red, green. And they each are, well, actually, you can see it on the back here. White, blue, black, red, green. And they all show the color pie of what used to be a thing, which ones oppose which ones. See, the black and red were originally opposed to white. The red and green were originally opposed to blue. Green, uh, let's see, green and white were originally opposed to black. White and blue were originally opposed to the red. And blue and black were originally opposed to green. I don't think they follow that color pie near as much anymore. So, they still do the team up colors. But in your older cards, they used to have cards that actually work together based on the color pie. They don't really anymore. Of course, I haven't played it in a couple years, so I don't know how the new cards look or how they play together. But anyway, blue creature, Keen-Eye Aven, and we look at the top, we see its casting cost. That is not working very well with me. 1 in a blue. So you have 1 blue mana and 1 of any color or a non-color. And that is enough mana. And of course you have to tap your mana, which is usually represented by taking your card and turning it sideways to represent that that land is tapped. So, the land is tapped, and that allows you to play Keen-Eye Aven or any other card depending on the casting cost you play. Now, of course, you can play whatever colors or any combination you want to play. You just have to have the land for it. Usually we recommend single or dual color decks. Once you go above those, it gets much more difficult to play. You can play 3 color decks, as like with the color pie, a white, green, and blue. You could play that, which is usually a completely good color, because white's supposed to be pure good and all that. Blue's supposed to be magic and psychology. Green is supposed to be the wild growth. Black is supposed to be like death, the decay. And red is quick rage destruction. So, with a white, green, and blue, you'd be playing the good plus magic, plus like deception and magic, and then growth and uh, the wild. So, but once you get beyond that, beyond 3 colors, it's just, yeah, near impossible to play. You don't really want to try 4 or 5 color decks because they are almost impossible to get the land out unless you play, as we discussed last time, multicolor lands. Because sometimes you can have a land that produces any color, or one of blue and white, one of red and green, one of black and blue, black and red, white and blue, white and green. You know, as far as the color wheel shows, you'll have those combinations sometimes as lands that are released. And so that may make it a little easier, but again, we usually suggest against a multicolored deck beyond 3 colors. Really, we kind of suggest, if you're kind of getting just into it, a 1 color or a 2 color. See, I got into it back in the mid 90s, and I would have giant decks like yay big. So it was impossible to get the cards out you wanted, but I just like, I want to play with this one, and this one, and this one. I finally, over the years, got to where I can narrow it down to the reasonable 60 to 70 card range. 60 is the minimum you want, including lands. So, um, anything less than that's not a valid card deck. Anyway, blue, and at the bottom you see it has the 2-3. The 2-3. Okay? The 2 represents the power it has to attack with. The 3 is its defense power. So whenever it attacks, it does 2 damage unless it has a spell that increases or decreases that attack ability. And whenever it blocks or is in battle, it can take 2 damage or 1 damage without dying. But once it gets up to 3 damage, that's enough to kill it, and it would go into the graveyard of your deck, which is just a pile of cards that are upturned to show what has been killed. So that's how battle kind of works. We'll get a little deeper into it here in a moment. But in the middle of the card, you see it says creature bird soldier. That's the type of card it is, verifying that it is a creature, and the type of creature it is a bird soldier. There can be many different creatures, but this is an example. Let's get some more out. Give me a moment, I'm getting some different colors out here. White. Oh, come on now. Green. Red. And black. There we go. So, just as an example here, we've got the blue. Let's see. Blue, the black, the red, the green, and the white. Kind of gives some examples. Whereas the blue was a creature bird soldier, the black is a creature, a zombie wizard. The red is a creature goblin. The green is a creature beast. And the white is a creature, I think it just says sliver, because it is a ward sliver. Okay. So, we have one creature of each kind. And as we pointed out, they each have a casting cost. And that looks like, oh, my bad, a blue with a 3 as its casting cost. My eyes are not wanting to focus like they normally do. You have 2 black with a 3 casting cost. You have a 1 red casting cost. You have a 2 green with 4 of any color casting cost. And then you have a, there we go, white with 4 of any color casting cost. So, we've seen that. We've seen what type of creatures they are. let's get back to their attacking and blocking. We'll go all right. We'll go with the black and the blue. Oh, if they were to battle each other, the blue has a 2-3 and the black has a 3-3. Now, normally the 3-3 would win because the blue can only do 2 damage, but the black can do 3, which would kill the blue. However, they wouldn't really ever be able to clash because the blue has an ability called flying, which means only creatures with flying can block it. So the blue could attack, but that black normally would never be able to block it. So that 2 damage would go on through. And that brings us to each card's ability. Now this is the Corpse Harvester. And while it's in play, if you pay 1 black and 1 of any color and tap it, that's the symbol for tap, that little turned arrow. It used to be just a T in the really old cards, which I do have some of. But it became the little turned arrow. So 1 black and 1 of any color, and to tap it, that would allow you to sacrifice a creature. So if you've got a small creature you could sacrifice, you can search your library for a zombie card and a swamp card. Reveal those cards and put them into your hand. Then you would shuffle your library that you're drawing from. So if you've got a zombie deck, great card. It would allow you to start pulling out zombies and lands so you can cast bigger and bigger spells. You would need some kind of fodder because it does require the sacrifice of a creature. But an okay ability. Now, the Aven, what was it? Kenai Aven. It has flying, which, as we discussed, when they attack and have flying, they can only be blocked by creatures with flying or creatures with reach, which allows some creatures to block creatures with flying. Usually reach will be on stuff like giant spider or something like that. But then it also has cycling 2, which means you pay 2 mana of any color, discard this card from your hand, so you must already have it in your hand. And then you draw a card. So let's say you are playing and you have this card in your hand, which when you start, you have a 7-hand card, or 7-card hand. If this is in your hand, but you don't like your current setup, you can cycle this if it has that ability. And it allows you to pay some mana, discard it into the graveyard, and draw a new card. Now, another card we're going to look at, the Ward Sliver. As Ward Sliver comes into play, choose a color. So when you cast it, you have to choose a color. All slivers have protection from the chosen color. So, if you're playing a sliver deck, beautiful card. It can give them protection from whatever color you choose when you cast it. So say you cast it, you choose black. Suddenly, if you've been playing a sliver deck, which are a pain in the butt to fight against anyway, because they stack on each other. Each one has ability that gives all other slivers this ability or that ability. But in this case, a protection from any one color, which means if they're playing with that color only deck, spells have no effect on you. Oh, well, on the slivers. They can still hit you as the player, but they can no longer hurt your slivers. Their creatures can't block because they can no longer do damage. So that's a pretty powerful ability. And their creatures can attack you. Well, they can attack you, but you can't block with your slivers. So yeah, slivers can be fairly powerful. Now, let's look at the feral. What does it say? Throwback? Yeah, feral throwback. It's normally a 3/3, but its ability is amplify and then 2 of any color. No, just amplify 2, so you don't even have to pay mana for it. As this card comes into play, um, put 2 1/1 counters on it for each beast card you reveal in your hand. So, if you're playing a beast deck, it could be very valuable, and it could really pump this up. So it's 3/3. You reveal one beast deck. That means you add 2/2 to it, so it becomes a 5/5. You reveal 2 beasts from your hand. It can become a 7/7. So yeah, things can change quickly. Its casting cost is huge, but it can come in being gigantic. And the Goblin. It is a 1/1. And it has Provoke. When this creature attacks, you may have target creature defending player um, target creature defending player controls untap and block if it is able. So, if they've got a powerful 1/1, because there are some 1/1s with huge abilities, but being 1/1, they're really weak. This is a 1/1, and when it attacks, you can force their powerful 1/1 to try to block, which will kill it. It'll kill this, but that's the trade-off in red. You have such power, such speed, but it's usually trade-off cards for hitting your opponent quick and hard. It's like bam, bam, bam. Now, we've looked at each card. Let's look at something else. Okay. Now, you'll notice something. Along with abilities, they have text in italics. That is known as flavor text. For a long time, Magic has produced its cards with story built in. And part of the story often is through flavor text. In this case, the first, I can't read. The first wave of slivers perished from the Riptide Wizard's magic. The second wave shrugged off their spells like water. Kind of giving a bit of flavor. So the first ones struggled with that particular color magic, but they came back and they suddenly had that protection from that color. To kind of give an example for its abilities. But it also gives you an example of the story. The Kenai Aven. I have no need of a map. The very continent itself guides my way, which is supposedly from the Kenai Aven itself. Okay. Daru's soldiers learned it's better to have a clean death from a sharp blade than to tangle with a goblin's rusted chains. So again, a little bit of story about the goblin itself. Okay, so that's just all abilities. So not only does it have Amplify, it's got Provoke, like we saw with the Goblin. So when its cards are filled up with abilities, sometimes they don't have flavor text. Because sometimes the abilities are that many or fill up the card. But yeah, and there's multiple different abilities. It's not just those few abilities. There are so many abilities. Some of them are no longer used. Some of them are still in use. Flying has been around since the beginning, so it's an ability that's really, really good. But one ability that's no longer used at all is called banding, which allows you to set your creatures together and attack as one, or block as one. It's kind of useless. Um, it was really only good for allowing you to take down much larger creatures. Because you could put creatures together. But it served little real purpose, given that they can sort of do that on their own. So, but like I said, there are white, red, black, green, blue, as far as creatures. There are multicolor creatures. So sometimes you'll get a creature, they've got gold borders, and you'll have to pay whatever the casting cost is, but it's usually a combination of colors. Um, do we have any gold in here? I don't see any. Ah, but one thing we could kind of show here. You've also got what's called artifact creatures. They count as artifacts, but also creatures. See at the top where they're any color to cast or colorless to cast? And in the middle it says artifact creature. So that's a different kind of creature. And those are usually pretty good decks, artifact decks, if you've got the cards for them. So that's another type of creature you can cast. You can cast artifact creatures, multicolored creatures, or the normal one color creatures. So, ah, come on. The binder's trying to fold on me. There we go. There's a multicolored creature. If I'm looking at this right. Yeah. Green and black, and so it requires 1 green, 2 black, and 3 of any color. It's still just a creature, but you know, it's the golden border with the multicolor. In this case, you pay 2 of any color, 1 green, 1 black, and sacrifice a creature. Target creature, don't have to be this one, but just target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And then another target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So, see where this is green and black? It focuses on death and growth at the same time. So it grows creatures +2/+2, but it shrinks others at -2/-2. So some abilities play off each other. But that's kind of how the creatures work. Now, we'll see the next video, which will, I don't know, will be, but I might make one on planeswalkers, because while you are the player and you can cast spells and creatures and lands, there is something else called planeswalkers, which work as players themselves. They're not creatures. But we'll kind of get into that. I think that'll be what I make the next video on. Anyway, as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. If you do want to check it out, Magic has actually quite a bit of lore. I've got a few of the books myself. The first, like, 4 or so covers Ice Age and um, the Urza Mishra War and everything, so there's a huge swath of just lore to the game itself. So it's not just a card game, there's actual story to it, which some of it's really good, some of it's but it's still something worth checking out. I was really fascinated by the original 5 Elder Dragons: Chromium, Palladia-Mor, Arcade Sabbath, Nicol Bolas. Who was the other one? Anyway, each dragon was a 3-color dragon, a gold creature. According to lore now, though, the only one that lives is Nicol Bolas, and he's truly evil. He just wants power. His colors, in fact, were black, red, and blue. A very black-focused dragon. But anyway, there is a bunch of lore. So, feel free to check it out. I'll see you all again in the next video. But until then, later.